Welcome to Songs of Experience, a Bob Dylan podcast where we explore the man and the music one song at a time. I'm Henry Bernstein, and I'm very pleased to welcome two special guests, Adam Selzer and Robin Haar, here to talk on this emergency podcast about the first three nights of the Outlaw Tour. Hi, gang.
Hey,
Hey,
I am thrilled to be here, Henry.
Great. Well, I
this
have to
is an
say,
emergency.
it's an absolute emergency. Yeah, so I'll say first, obviously I want to have both of you on this podcast properly to talk about a song,
Oh, of
but
course.
as a part of the Bob Dylan live experience, I had to just speak to you both. So we'll save your Bob Dylan origin stories for when I have
Right.
you on properly, but I can vouch for both of you as having amazing Bob Dylan pedigrees and have both have had the honor and privilege of seeing Bob Dylan with me. So and at the same show too, at the Beacon.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, so let's get right into it. You were both at the Outlaw Tour. Um, Robin, I want to start with you. Which shows so far from the three show old Outlaw Tour have you been to, and how did it come about that you made it to those?
Well, I've been to the three that have been held so far. So that's Alpharetta, Charlotte, and Raleigh. And how did that happen? Uh, oh, originally, when the Outlaw Tour was announced, I bought a ticket for the one closest to me here where I live in DC, and that was Raleigh. But I didn't have any particular interest in, gorging on these because I had no idea what to expect. And then when it dropped relatively recently, that a 70-minute, 75-minute period of time was being set aside for Bob's set, I thought, okay, this is something I'm going to want to see. So I decided, I just grouped it in an efficient way on one trip in 3 days, one trip, and that's how I got there.
Perfect. As of right now, do you have any other plans for the rest of the tour through September, or that's it?
My hometown is St. Louis, and the show
Oh,
is there on September 8th, which
that's
is
right.
2 days after my birthday. And so I'm going to go there, and I'm attempting to recruit my girlfriend cabal to make it to St. Louis and possibly even onward to Cincinnati. But we'll see what happens.
Great. Well, I'll
And I
see you
have
in.
dreams about the Northeast because there's so many.
Yeah, there are a lot. Well, I'll meet you in St. Louis. I'll see you there. All right, Adam, same question.
All right. Well, when this was announced, most of the first shows that I saw were in the Atlanta area. I did high school and college around there. So I'd never heard of this amphitheater in Alpharetta. I knew Alpharetta it's one of those, like most Atlanta suburbs, it's like a subdivision in strip mall town. This was not going to be the trip that you go on. It's like, oh, cool, new city, haven't been there before. These amphitheaters are all in these far-flung suburbs of suburbs. But word was from the start that they were going to be mixing up the set list. When I first heard like 6 months ago was that Bob was going to be touring with Willie, but they wanted him to do the hits.
Hmm.
And there's just a thing where there's only so many shows where you don't have any idea what he's going to do.
Right.
Like even in the days when the set list changed around a lot, you could usually assume you could guess what most of the songs would be. You could guess there might be like one from the once a year rotation. There was a surprise now and then, but you knew about what the show was going to be like. And this, we had no idea. Like words about the band shakeups had gotten through, and I just can't resist a show like that. So I got a ticket for Tinley Park way later in the tour, but I just wanted to be at the opener. I just got a lawn seat because everything was way too expensive, and just decided to make a 1 day trip of it. But then that first night was so weird that Robin had already offered me a ride to Charlotte, but I said I have to work the next day. I have to fly back so I can get to work, and then it was only the next morning. I'm like driving through the suburbs of Atlanta looking for another Waffle House when it occurred to me, wait a minute, this is Saturday. I don't work until Monday. Like I had no sense of time. I realized suddenly I could go to Charlotte and then still make it back in time for work. So I'm like immediately getting on tour, like, Robin, have you left yet? And made it to the Charlotte show too. And that one, I think from Willie not being able to be there, tickets had gotten way cheaper. And then right after Plantin Kraus played, Robin came up and said there were a bunch of empty seats around her, so maybe I could try sneaking up. I've gotten pretty good
That's
at
on night
sneaking.
two that happened.
That is night two, yeah. So
Mhm.
night two, I went from being in the lawn where you really couldn't see a thing, up to second row center,
Wow.
and
Oh,
fantastic.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I can just give
Thanks,
a
Robin.
plug. Yeah, thank you, Robin. If I can just give a plug, Adam had a great report um of the tour so far on Ray Padgett's Substack, flagging down the double E's. Please check that out. And there's lots of audio and video there. And also subscribe because if you're a Bob Dylan fan, it's just an amazing wealth of joy. So speaking of audio video, let's talk about the camera thing. When last we all saw Bob in April of this year, there was not a phone in sight. You couldn't take your phone. The phones were in the yonder pouches. That was it. What was the experience like of the phone freedom? Because I'll speak for myself, but I think we've all spoken about this on side conversations that by the end with the Yonder pouches, the experience of it being a phone-free show was actually quite liberating and beautiful, like just sort
Yeah,
of being in the moment. So, what was it like having the phones available now to record whatever you wanted?
it
Robin,
was
what
such such an opposite experience because it went from being really on lockdown to just being such a free for all.
did it feel weird at first, like
Yeah,
pulling
when
your
when I
phone
had
out?
my phone out, the security guard was 2 feet away from me, and just in like a private link, I had a Zoom up so some friends could hear what was going on in
Thank
real
you for that.
time in Alpharetta. And like the guy was, looked right at me and didn't say a thing, just looked at the people next to me. He's like, "Hey, were you guys at Dave Matthews too?" And yeah, just people just chatting all the way through. It was a very casual atmosphere. It could not be more opposite from Rough and Rowdy Ways tour
Uh-huh.
stuff.
Uh-huh. Robin, did you have a similar experience in that?
Yeah, it was so unlike Rough and Rowdy Ways that there wasn't even a sense of, oh, this is strange. I've got my phone. What is this thing here? And I just immediately fell right into well, I've got to text Laura and I got to loop in Aaron
Yeah.
on this and let everybody know what's happening in the moment because it's just so fucking exciting. And it's just white bread to rye bread or whatever. It's just a completely different sort of deal all the way through. um from the rules to the whole ambience of the venue and who
Hmm.
else is around you and what you can hear. I was up close, so I had just as good a view of Bob as I had when I had the good seats that I had sprung for back in Rough and Rowdy Ways.
Hmm.
um, but nevertheless, the sound was quite different,
Mm.
and the set lists were quite different. I actually did not hear any Bob Dylan shows in my life prior to Rough and Rowdy Ways shows.
Oh, okay.
So this was a completely different thing, more akin to my usual 70s singers, songwriters with, another 20,000 people, in the crowd with me, than
Right.
it was to any prior Bob Dylan experiences.
So two things on that. So number one, that means that every song that first night were songs that you heard for the first time live, correct?
Except for I'll Be Your Baby Tonight. Oh,
Oh,
but live
no, that
on
was
night
night
one.
two. That was night on night
Yeah, that was
one.
night two. Yeah,
So
correct. Night one, that's right.
so that brings me to my next question for both of you.